The tomato has traveled across continents and through centuries before becoming an everyday ingredient. It began as a wild plant in the Andes, reached the Aztec world, crossed the Atlantic with Spanish explorers, and slowly changed from a suspicious plant into a beloved food. Its story also leads into painting, advertising, festivals, and the symbols people create around ordinary objects. Following the tomato helps us see that food is never only about taste. It can carry memories of migration, trade, technology, art, fear, experimentation, and cultural change. Long before tomatoes appeared in European kitchens, they grew as wild plants in the Andes Mountains. By around 700 AD, people were familiar with them in the region, and the tomato later traveled north toward the Aztec Empire. This early movement reminds us that food histories are also histories of travel, exchange, adaptation, and the knowledge held by communities long before global trade became common. The tomato's first chapter belongs to the landscapes and communities of the Americas, not to the later markets that made it famous worldwide. In 1519, Spanish explorers including Hernan Cortés encountered the tomato and carried seeds back toward Europe. At first, no one could know that this unfamiliar plant would eventually become part of meals around the world. A small seed crossing the ocean began a long cultural transformation, connecting the histories of the Americas, Europe, agriculture, trade, and changing ideas about what belongs on a plate. The journey was not an instant success. It required new growers and cooks to observe the plant, test it, and decide whether it could become part of their own food traditions. Europe did not immediately agree about the tomato. In France, people called it pomme d'amour, or love apple, and sometimes grew it as a decorative plant. In Northern Europe, many believed it was poisonous. The tomato's acidic juice could draw lead from pewter plates used by wealthy households, causing poisoning and giving the fruit a dangerous reputation. The same plant could, therefore, look beautiful to one group and threatening to another. This history shows how beliefs about food are shaped not only by the ingredient itself, but also by technology, household customs, social class, and incomplete explanations of danger. While suspicion continued in parts of Europe, people in southern Italy began to embrace the tomato. It became useful in familiar foods and eventually helped shape dishes recognized around the world, including pizza and rich sauces. This change did not happen because the tomato suddenly became a different plant. It happened because people experimented, shared knowledge, and discovered how a new ingredient could fit into local cooking traditions. Once cooks found ways to preserve, season, and combine it with other foods, the tomato moved from an uncertain novelty to a central part of everyday meals. Later, tomatoes became connected with bad performances. The name rotten tomatoes recalls the old practice of throwing rotten food at performers who disappointed an audience. In 1883, a New York Times report described actor John Ritchie being hit by rotten tomatoes during a performance on Long Island. The tomato moved from the kitchen into public language, where it became a humorous symbol of criticism and failure. A familiar food could now communicate an opinion, showing how objects gain new meanings when people repeat them in stories, newspapers, entertainment, and popular culture. In the summer of 1944, Pablo Picasso created a series of 5 paintings inspired by the tomato. In Planta Tomates, the plant can be read as a symbol of strength. Its branches stretch upward while holding heavy fruit. The contrast between bright green life and the gray window behind it suggests resilience and continued growth, even during a time shaped by war and uncertainty. In this setting, the tomato is not merely an object to eat. It becomes an image through which viewers can think about endurance, color, renewal, and the possibility of life continuing through difficult historical moments. 2 decades later, Andy Warhol used cans of tomato soup as symbols of industrial production and consumer culture. The image was powerful because it took an ordinary grocery product and placed it inside the world of modern art. The tomato now carried several meanings at once: food, packaging, repetition, mass production, memory, and the visual language of everyday life. Warhol's example shows that art can make people look again at objects they normally pass without noticing, asking how an everyday product can reflect the economy and habits of an entire society. Today, the tomato appears in international festivals, from Nashville's Tomato Art Festival to Spain's La Tomatina. It is also a basic ingredient in pico de gallo, marinara sauce, ketchup, and countless home-cooked meals. From a wild plant in the Andes to a symbol in paintings, cans, festivals, and kitchens, the tomato shows how an ordinary object can gather history, art, imagination, and shared meaning. Its journey is still changing because every new recipe, celebration, image, and cultural use adds another layer to the story of this familiar fruit.